Welcome to the Carolina Move podcast, episode 1, The Truth Behind the Inspection, What Every Buyer and Seller Should Know. I'm your host, Christine Kozachuk, Realtor affiliated with KW Premier, Keller Williams Realty. On today's show, I have home inspection expert, Preston Sandlin, owner of Home Inspection Carolina since 2006. Welcome, Preston, to the Carolina Move podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. And thank you for having me, Christine.
Great. Can you tell our listeners today a little bit about you and why you got into the home inspection business?
Sure. Well, I'm Preston Sandlin, and I own Home Inspection Carolina. We operate basically in 3 areas. We're in the Charlotte market, the Triad, and the Triangle, which is, the Triad is Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point, and the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. We do home inspections and a couple of other different inspections in all of those areas. My background is I was a school teacher actually, and I taught school for 3 years, and I started working for a company in the summers because I had my summers off that did pest control and was getting into home inspection, and they offered me a job full time, making what I was making teaching, which wasn't a whole lot at the time. This was 1994 or 5.
And I don't think they're making that much more either.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I worked for that company for a few years, and I got all my own licenses and learned the ins and outs of the businesses. I actually went to the guy who owned it, and was like, "Hey, man, I think we could expand this and grow it." And yeah, he didn't see the same vision. So, eventually I went out on my own, and I was a one person rather inspector for years and years and years, and until I was working myself to death. So I finally learned to start hiring people. And, that's a whole different. Go to the skill set of the issue, because I still have that skill set, but it's a whole nother skill set to run a business, and a lot of things I had to learn the hard way. But I'm here.
Oh yeah, small business owners, we wear many hats.
Oh man, my goodness, yeah. And you learn things. I mean, you got to be good at marketing, at taxes, and everything. But as you grow, I've learned the trick is to hire people who are good at things that you're not good at.
Right. That's really good advice for a small business owner, because when you start out as a small business owner, you forget to delegate because you started the business and you actually want to take control of everything. You forget to delegate. Yeah,
100%. Most people start, entrepreneurs, and you guys own the business too, is because you thought you could do something better than the way it was currently being done or somebody else is doing it, right? So, and you probably are, and you start doing this, and then as you grow, you got to systematically fire yourself. And that goes against what you did to begin with, but it's an evolution. But our goal, is to provide our clients with the best home inspection, protect the asset that they're buying, and also be the easiest to work with for the home buyer, sometimes seller if we do a pre-listing inspection, and the realtor as well. We just want to be the easiest to work with.
Yeah, Preston, what exactly does a licensed home inspector do, and what don't you do that people often assume you do?
Yeah, a good question. So basically, and you got to think about it this way. We only have a few hours, right, to look at this house that potentially, because people live there. I'd love to have your house for 2 days and go through it from top to bottom, but reasonably, you're going to get access for a few hours. So we're going to go in, and in most cases, buyers getting ready to buy the house, they're under contract, and they're getting an inspection. And, we're inspecting it. There are basically 4 systems on a house. There's the structural, and then there's 3 mechanical systems, the electric system, the HVAC, the heating and cooling system, and the plumbing system. So we're looking at all 3 of those, all 4 of them rather. And, we want to make sure, it's not like Amazon when you buy a house. Amazon, hey, you don't like it, you can send it back. Can't do that with a house. So the best thing you can do is get an inspection, to have somebody with a trained eye, who does this, it has gone through licensing and certification.
Mm-hmm.
And most home inspectors come from some type of trade background as well, or and that's not necessary, but a lot do, but basically, have a trained eye look at this and find out what's wrong with the house, because it's a large purchase. Now, to the second part of your question, what do we not do?
Mm-hmm.
Or what are the misconception? We're not appraisers. We don't do the value of the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's the appraiser who's doing that for the bank. Also, there's no pass or fail. Some people think there's a pass or fail. There's not. And I haven't ever found a perfect house. But most things can be repaired. Most things can
Mm-hmm.
be fixed. It's just to educate the buyer on what they're getting into, and then a great realtor such as yourself takes that information, and then depending on what the market is, what the deal is, sometimes you can negotiate some repairs, sometimes you can negotiate uh, money off the house in lieu of that. But that also has a lot to do with the market, supply and demand. When it's a
Yes.
extreme seller's market, they're like, I got 20 offers on this house today. I'm not fixing anything. And then, when it becomes an extreme buyer's market, it's like, oh, please, I'll fix everything and I'll give you the Porsche. So
That's so true. Now, you may have already answered this one. From a technical standpoint, what are the most critical systems you evaluate during a home inspection?
yeah, I would say the those four systems, obviously
Mm-hmm.
structural, your load bearing. I mean, if you take your
Mm-hmm.
roof and, I mean, if your structure's not right, you don't, back to Bible times, you build your house on sand or whatever, I mean, you got to have a great structure foundation. And, obviously your plumbing's got to be, you can't have leaks or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. And electrical could, cause house fires or something like that. And then your HVAC, obviously, we live in the mid South, I guess. So,
Oh,
we
yes.
have winters and summers. It's funny. I've
All
met
in
people.
one day sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I met people in South Florida said, man, we don't even have heat down here, or and vice versa. I met somebody in Hawaii and they're like, we don't even have a heater here. You're like, but anyway, we need both systems here. We need the heat and the
Mm-hmm.
air. So, yeah, I mean, it's critical that we check those out. And a lot of times when people buy a home, you know, like anything else, that they put all their money down on a down payment, and you don't want to be hit with, hey, you need a new roof right off the bat, or you need a new
Mm-hmm.
furnace because, and that's just not something that's not a fun that's not a fun
Mm-hmm.
situation to be there, and that's what we're here for, is to protect your buyers from being
Oh,
getting put in that
absolutely.
sort of situation.
Absolutely. Now, what industry standards or codes guide your inspection process?
Sure, and that goes along with a misconception too. Home inspectors are not code inspectors. That's a different. Code inspectors are inspect the house during construction at different phases because they're able to measure the distance between the studs and the nail patterns and all that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously, when a home inspector is inspecting a house, we're not even privy to. Now we do pre-drywall inspections on new construction, but um, to answer your question, we're inspecting for I never can say this word correctly. Habitability, occupancy. Is it safe? Is it sound sound building principles,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, we're also licensed by the state. I'm licensed in North Carolina and South Carolina. There is a licensing uh, thing you have to go through. There's different ways. I mean, at the end of the day, you basically have to take a test. There's 200 questions, but to qualify to sit for that test, you either have to, have been kind of like an apprentice for years and years, and done so many inspections, or you had to be an architect or an engineer. There's a couple of different ways, and then there's, we're licensed, and we have to do 12 hours of CE continuing education each year, just like realtors. I think you
Mm-hmm.
guys have 8 hours every
Yeah.
year. There's continuing
Mm-hmm.
education requirements. But yes, we're licensed by the Department of Insurance, the Office of State Fire Marshal, which is under that, and then we're under that.
Okay. Okay. Which issues do you consider true structural or safety concerns versus routine maintenance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Basically what I always tell people is, when you get that inspection report, it can be a little overwhelming.
Mhm.
But that's where a good realtor such as yourself comes in and prepares them. Look, they're gonna have a whole bunch of stuff. And here's the thing. I say divide it up like you divide your laundry, right? I got three baskets. I put my whites over here, my brights here, and my darks here, whatever, however you're gonna do. So I would say, must haves, like
Mhm.
to haves would be nice to have. That's kind of my thinking. And must have would be your major structural or safety issues. Cosmetic things, maybe some peel and paint, rubbing door, sticking window that's not structural. We would like to have that, but doesn't, and everything else would fall in between. Now, so safety would be obviously, smoke detector or absence of smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector, loose railing, on a high deck or a banister or something that could cause somebody physical damage or the fire or something like that would certainly fall under safety. And then as far as major structural, something that's structurally significant or a high dollar amount, I would put in that category.
Mhm. So, what quick high impact repairs should sellers address before listing to keep deals moving smoothly?
So this is a good question. If you go to our website, homeinspectioncarolina.com, and you go under the realtor section, and you don't have to be a realtor, but you just a home seller, we have a seller's inspection checklist,
Okay.
which is basically like 47 items, and you can download it. It's free. That home inspectors are going to be looking for. I I tell people it's like a study guide for inspection, your inspection. My daughter, I have two daughters. They're a little bit old. They're 25 and 21 now, but back when they were younger, one of them was studying for a test one night. I was helping her with flashcards or something. She said, "Daddy, is a home inspection? Isn't a home inspection kind of like a test?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." She said, "Do they know what to study?" And I was like, "No, but they should."
Oh, that's
So
good.
I call it a study guide. But yeah, I mean, if you're a seller, certainly download that, go through that list, fix anything that you know about. I understand sellers don't know, they probably haven't been in their crawl space in a while or their attic in a
Hmm.
while. But if there's anything you know about, ideally, in a perfect world, in a perfect closing, everybody wins. Seller wins, the buyer wins, everybody wins. I think when you know somebody thinks somebody else has to lose for them to win, that's where the problems happen.
Mm, I like that. I'm going to go on your site and download that myself. I
Yeah,
wish I
yeah,
had that when
100%.
I had mine.
Yeah, download it. There's
Absolutely.
also when you first go on our website, it's homeinspectioncarolina.com. Down in the bottom right corner, there's a chat, and it's Hector the inspector. And
Ah,
basically, you can ask Hector any inspection question. Like when were GFCIs required in bathrooms, or how long should my roof last? And it'll give you a long, and it's basically an AI home inspector, but
okay.
gives you correct answers because it's only pulling from code and reputable sources versus chat gpt, which can give you hallucinations. It can pull
Hmm.
from something on the internet that's not correct, but
Hmm.
this is only pulling from trusted sources. But yeah, check out Hector the
Oh,
inspector.
I like that. Now, what do you say to reassure nervous buyers when the inspection report looks overwhelming?
Well, that's a great question. The first part of that would be to prepare them. uh,
Okay.
you know Mentally prepare. I said, look, the state requires us to put all this stuff in there, right? And just the report, if my blank template of report is like 30 pages. So with nothing wrong. And that's because the state requires us to put a lot
Hmm.
of stuff in there. And I want to put the font big enough where I can read it. And I'm in my 50s. So I have
I
fairly good
understand.
sized font, you know. And then you also got to think a couple of other things. You know, there's that we take pictures of things, and then we have a summary, and those pictures are in both places, so they're double. Because a lot of people want to look at the summary. And there's also a lot of maintenance stuff, and we also put a lot of informative stuff like sizes of filters and all of that. So the reason I'm saying this all can combine to make that report longer. And just because your report is a certain number of pages doesn't necessarily mean, oh my gosh, this house is terrible. I think preparing the buyers to look, this report could be long, but first of all, there's a lot of stuff that's repeated, a lot of informational kind of owner's manual type stuff in here. So if we approach it with the three baskets and we can attack it, out of this entire report, there's probably two or three major things, several middle things, and a lot of little things, on a typical house.
So now, how can sellers prepare their homes in a way that shows care and respect for the future?
Yeah, I would go back to that seller's inspection checklist and for the sellers to do it and just go through it. And there's so many little simple things. Like I'll give you an example. So you got all your faucets, right? You'll have one faucet, say a bathroom faucet, that, man, you just got low water pressure. And, chances are, if you've got good water pressure, all the other ones, it's not a pressure thing. It's probably that little aerator, which is a screen. It's probably just clogged up. And that's on there and you can unscrew that thing, take an old toothbrush or something, screw it back in, boom. It's fine. So instead of that becoming an issue on the home inspection report, you fixed it. Something you can fix. And take a lot of these things off. That I think that helps a lot. Just like anything else, if you were going to sell a car, would you just put it up for sale with it dirty, McDonald's bags in the floor? No, you would go get it washed, get it cleaned up, because it's going to present better. It's going to get you a better price. And it's like in your words, it's more respectful for the buyer. So thing with the house, fix it up. And for goodness sakes, don't leave dirty dishes in the sink when the buyers are coming or the home inspector.
Or laundry everywhere.
Yeah. You got company coming. You got company coming that's probably going to buy this house. So it's really important company coming.
So, Preston, what common misunderstandings between buyers and sellers can be avoided with better communication?
This is a good question. I think this is where the realtor really comes in, because the realtor becomes a really good mediator. What happens with sellers, I think, and buyers, everything's personal, right? Seller, it's, something wrong with their house. It's like, calling their baby ugly or something, and nobody, because it's their house and there's so many memories there, and, they raise their children there and this is like their baby. And, it's, what do they mean they're not going to offer us $2 million? So I think the communication, when you get a really good realtor that basically is objective, there's some objectivity because you're dealing with two people who are very subjective, and they're able to realize what's important to this person and what's important to this person and can communicate it to the other party without them feeling like a personal attack, or what I mean. Where I think if they were doing that's why I'm so pro realtor, because buyers and sellers just were up to their own devices, they would get in an argument. It'd be like people online about politics. You've got a mediator in the middle who's like, well, let me tell you why this is important to them. And, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Well, I really want this. And then you can go back to, this is why this is important to them, and then usually can, come to some mutual beneficial, agreement.
That's really good advice. Now, how does a home inspector build trust with their client through the process?
Say that one more time. How
does a home inspector build trust with clients through the process?
Oh, good question. Okay, gotcha. Well, I think the beginning would be the realtor. A lot of realtors recommend us because most home inspectors, most buyers don't know a home inspector. So, realtors have, worked with the home inspector before. They good reputation, and a realtor is usually not going to recommend a bad home inspector because that realtor wants future referrals from that client, family members, and friends. And if they recommended a bad home inspector, well, they're not getting those. So they're the realtor's recommendations, but also go online, check the reviews. Look for somebody who's if they got 5 reviews and they're all 5-star, but the person giving the reviews has the same last name as the home inspector, that might not be, look for somebody, I mean, just like your truck repair business,
Mhm.
over time, they've been in business for a while. I mean, I have nothing against new businesses, but I like businesses been in business for a while, and they've
Mhm.
had pretty good reviews over a period of time. And, go read those reviews, and, you'll get a feel for it. And sometimes go read the 1-star reviews. I gotta be
Mhm.
careful how I say this, because I'm not saying that people game the system, but I do feel like most people, if you've been in business long enough, you're going to get a bad review. And I
Mhm.
like to see how that business responded to it, and that tells me a lot. But
Yeah,
anyway,
with reviews, I believe, like you believe, but I also believe read it all. Just really, even if it's like it's a lower reviews, like read it and just see, is it really a legit review? Because I've
right.
I've done things like that before. So now, what are they in our region? What environmental or aging home factors should buyers be educated about?
Well, probably the biggest environmental thing is, we live in the South, which means
Mm,
moisture.
yes.
People who move here from Arizona don't know anything about that.
No.
So moisture can lead to mold, and
Hmm.
and that's a big environmental thing here. So if you get moisture that's trapped, has nowhere to go, I think mold is probably the number one. I mean, there's other environmental issues
Hmm.
for sure, but you show me mold, I'll show you a moisture problem.
Hmm.
So either it's not ventilated enough, or there's a condensation issue, or there's a plumbing issue, or there's some type of weather something. But a lot of times, I mean, mold can happen anywhere, but typically I would say 85 to 90% of the time there's a problem, it's in the crawl space. So what's going on in there? Is there why is there a lot of moisture in there, and it's either not being vented, or it shouldn't be getting in there to begin with, or something like that? That's just, something you got to figure out. And it's, I'd have to see the house to see. I mean, there's different
Hmm.
reasons that can happen.
Yeah, for sure. We do have a humidity problem here. It's like,
Yeah.
whoo, you have to get used to
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
Now, what tools and technology are you using today that make inspections more accurate and informational?
Oh yeah. So, we've been doing this since the mid '90s. And reports have evolved. I mean, back then, man, we were taking Polaroid pictures, and and writing, on these carbon copy reports on the hood of the truck
Oh
when
yeah.
the hood wasn't too hot.
Mhm.
So obviously now we're using digital photos, and cameras and computers, and but more recently, we have 25 inspectors. 6 of them are now licensed to use drones. We're starting to use drones
Okay.
because that's really nice. If you have a really steep roof, or top of the chimney, you just can't get there. These drones are pretty excellent. The cameras on them, so you can see that. Infrared cameras, which basically, like you scan an infrared, it basically will, in a graphic form, show you the temperature of everything. So you're looking for an anomaly, like a hot spot or a cold spot that shouldn't be there. It could be missing insulation, or we found heat ducts that were never cut out. It was just the duct was just running to the back of the drywall. I was like, wow, why is there that hot spot there? And it's just they never cut out the register. So infrared cameras, drones, and now, like Hector the inspector there on our site, you can ask them questions. So AI, we're starting to use a little bit of AI. So, and then, with our company, that's one of the things we've always said, whatever technology's out there, we want to take advantage of it for our customers, and, however we can use it. So we're constantly, and I think, as time goes on, there's going to be more and more uses of AI.
Oh, absolutely. They infrared. That's fascinating. That
Yeah,
is
it's
really fascinating. Now, what's something every seller should understand before their home inspection?
their house isn't perfect, and it's not personal.
Mhm.
It's just, I I think it's tough, like I love my house. I raised my kids in my house. It has sentimental value. You got to realize when that inspector comes, when that buyer comes, they didn't raise their kids here. They're just looking at it,
Mhm.
they're hoping that one day it'll be what it is. But it's just nails, drywall, and I don't mean to say it, but the true condition of the house has nothing to do with your memories,
Mhm.
and that sort of stuff. And I get all that, but that what you value, all that sentimental value, isn't value to someone else. So don't take it personally. They're going to find stuff. There's no perfect house. Just know going in, they're going to find stuff. And think about how most people who are selling a house are buying a house somewhere.
Mhm.
So think about how you feel about buying that house, and then you got to respect that in the seller who's buying yours. If that makes
And I
sense.
can remember when we sold our home about 3 years ago. We lived there 18 years, and you're talking about
Oh
that
wow.
sentimental. So, we saw our kids in their teenage years finish growing up, and then we had grandkids that actually were in there.
Oh
So,
wow.
when we were selling, there was so many memories, and yeah. And yes, Christine wrote
To a
down
degree, it's like your
plenty of
child,
time.
and it's like, and like I used to be a teacher, so you know, it's like a parent-teacher conference. Everybody wants to hear their child's great and good.
Mhm.
Let me tell you what little Johnny did today. you know, so, it's
That's
kind of
fun.
like you're talking about their child, but there's no perfect house, there's no perfect
No.
child. But if
Mhm.
if we all just be as above board as we can be, I think everything's going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how can agents and inspectors work together in a way that supports all personality types during the transactions?
That's a really good one there. You have all different types of personality types, and even
Mhm.
from teaching, there's what are there? There's different types, like kinesthetic people have to do stuff with their hands. There's visual people. There's auditory
Mhm.
people, and you've probably also heard those books, love language or whatever.
Oh
Everybody has it.
yeah. Mhm.
Some people like visuals. Some people like you've got to realize, and then when you're dealing with people too, I privately, I have meetings with our inspectors and all. And, one of the things we want to know right away is like, hey, is this person an engineer or electrician or, something like, because they're going to be I's dotted, T's crossed. You're not going to be able to, they're just the facts, I'm
Mhm.
not saying, but you just got to be able to read personalities, right? And realtors are masters at this, and the problem is now you got a whole bunch of people. You got a seller and their significant other, and a buyer and their significant other. You probably got a whole lot of different personality types.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm trying to see how I can say this without getting myself in trouble. You probably have run into this because you deal with the public a lot and you're
Mhm.
a realtor. And there's usually, out of the two, the husband and wife, there's one that's a little more like, hey, just just the facts, or just and then there might be one out of the two that, I don't know, might could get mad quicker, or look. And it's, I know what people will say, oh, you're trying to say that's the way a man. No, 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 no. And sometimes it's not what you think.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and you just, I don't know. It just comes with years of experience. You kind of got to read the people and how you deliver the
Mhm.
information. I mean, I'm not saying it's the same information, but the delivery is different with different people, just because you kind of got to meet them at their love language, so to speak.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I was all over the map on that, but
you did great. Okay. What is one myth about home inspections that you'd like to clarify for everyone listening?
it's not a pass fail, and it's not an appraiser. It's not the value of the house. A lot of people there's a lot of people who think the appraisal and the home inspection is a different thing. The appraisal is what the bank, they send an appraiser out there basically to make sure that that dwelling is worth the amount of money that they're lending on it,
Mhm.
in case they have to foreclose on it, so they don't wind up in negative. In other words, they loaned out $500,000 on a $300,000 house and it wasn't worth that. They're going to lose 200,000. So they're just more about value of, is it worth what? Where the home inspection is more about safety, habitability. Are you going to be able to move into this thing? Is everything going to work? In condition of the house, and something else I didn't mention, but I'd like to is, everything has a life expectancy or lifespan.
Mhm.
Roof, furnace, water heater. Unless you're buying a brand new house, most every one of those are somewhere in its life expectancy. And I'm sure that house that you lived in for 18 years, you probably, I don't know, you did one of those. I would guarantee you either put a roof or a water heater or a furnace or something or air conditioning or something,
I
didn't you?
I put a roof and I put the heating AC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just because they have certain life expectancies,
Yes.
and they're somewhere along the line of that. Now, I will caution somebody. I can't, like, if I inspect a house and I'm like, hey, your HVAC is 20 years old, but it's working fine. You can't reasonably expect them to replace that because it's working fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what you may want to think is, you know what, we might should get a warranty on this because
Mm-hmm.
it is a little long in the tooth, that
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, I had a realtor who was getting ready to sell her house, and with the roof, and when they can inspect it, she says, just think about it like you're buying a car. It's kind of an analogy you said earlier. And she says, when you have a car, if the tires are bald, do you want to buy that? Would you buy that car? I'm like, no. So it's kind of like the analogy. She said, well, the roof needs to be replaced, and
Yeah.
this needs to be replaced. So that's great. So in closing, Preston, what is one thing that you would give a seller and a buyer before we close, a tip? It's something that we haven't discussed.
A tip. Um, that's a really good question. I would say when that seller's inspection checklist I was telling you
Mm-hmm.
about,
Mm-hmm.
it's named that, but it's just an inspection checklist. Um, buyers and sellers both use that. Buyers can use that when they go look at a house.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
look for things. I mean, as you walk up to a house, one of the biggest questions should be, where does the water go when it rains? Like, does it all drain away from that? Is there any, you know, drainage issue where it's coming back towards the house or anything like that? In the house, I mean, obviously you're going to be looking at the drapes, the windows, does it have an open floor plan and all that? But
Mm-hmm.
while you're there, just be looking around for cracks and things like that. And, there are the floors, and stains, moisture stains,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're, more than one floor, if you can figure out where downstairs is underneath like the master. For some reason, it's
Okay.
always under the formal dining. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
but let me say something quickly though about cracks.
Okay.
If you see a crack, like just a straight line crack, that's probably just a seam crack. That's no big deal. If you're looking for the jagged lightning bolt cracks coming out of the corner and the ones that are big enough you could put a pencil, take a pencil lead and
Okay.
put it in. A little hairline crack doesn't bother me too bad, but what that's showing you is movement for sure. But straight line cracks, just geometrically straight, that's just a seam crack in the drywall. That's cosmetic. That's not a big deal.
Okay, that's great. So in closing, Preston, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you and how they can follow you on social media.
Sure, sure. Well, first and foremost, will be our website, homeinspectioncarolina.com. And there's a whole lot of free downloads on there. That would be my tip too. Go to that website and check out the thing. Another thing that's on there is we have a whole section on building permits. First of
Okay.
all, when it's required, but the thing that's really useful is we have the links for all the counties in North Carolina and South Carolina where you can check building permits. So if you go look at a house and you're like, ooh, this basement's a little wonky. Did they pull a permit on this?
Mm,
You can go to our website, go on there and click on whatever county it's in and put in the address and it'll show you all the permits. We just have
oh,
links to where, you need to go. But anyway, back to your
that's
original
great.
question. Yeah, thanks. Homeinspectioncarolina.com. Also on Facebook, homeinspectioncarolina.com. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok, we have Home Inspection Carolina, but also Inspector Crazy Pants. That's kind of my whole shtick. I wear these crazy pants to be
He
remembered.
does.
So yeah, so I'm Inspector Crazy Pants on TikTok and Instagram. So yeah, follow me on there. And if you have a question or something, don't hesitate to ask me. But also ask Hector if it's an
I
inspection
love that.
question. Yeah, on the website there, homeinspectioncarolina.com. But yeah, I would love to be a resource and help you any way that I can. And buy a house, man. Buy a house. I have two daughters, and I try. It's the best. It's the American dream. You build equity.
Hmm.
There's tax advantages. Just buy a house or condo, but buy something. Don't rent unless you have to. I understand for certain situations, but if you're gonna live somewhere for more than a couple of years, I highly
Hmm.
recommend buying a house and finding a realtor such as yourself, because they're very much worth it and they're going to pay for themselves and more with the negotiation, just like we were talking about, because
Hmm.
the realtor brings in objectivity where the buyer and seller are both subjective. So you need,
Hmm.
some person there that can kind of mediate. So,
Absolutely. So I wasn't going to throw this question here, but since you brought it up, tell us about why the crazy pants.
oh, Oh yeah, I'm Inspector Crazy Pants. I just have my gym shorts on right now because we're on Zoom. But I know I've been on things that like, show us your crazy pants. I'm like, well, you should have told me that. I would have picked some up. Yeah, I wear these crazy, they're basically golf pants, but it's just marketing.
It is.
Years ago, I was like, I need something to make people remember me by, and so I went out and bought these crazy golf pants, and I didn't know. I was like, they're either gonna hate me or I don't know. But then, like
No, I
after
think it's
the
great.
presentation, like 2 or 3 days later, I got an email. Yeah, who's the guy with the crazy pants? We liked what he said. So I was
I
like,
love
man,
that.
I think I'm onto something here. So
I
we,
really
we don't
love
wear
that.
pants. I mean, we don't wear those pants on the inspection. We wear normal pants on the inspection.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Preston, for being on the Carolina Move podcast, and great success for you and your crazy pants.
Yeah, well,
And
thank you.
again, thank you for being on the Carolina podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.